Hi, I'm Patty Ann Brown, and you are in the strategy room. Pollsters and the political establishment stood in amazement last night as Donald Trump pulled out an historic win over Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton. Trump will now be the 45th president of the United States, and campaign manager Kellyanne Conway accredited what she called undercover Trump voters and other important factors for his win. So who are these undercover voters, and was this really one of the secrets to Trump's success? Joining us now, Democratic strategist Christopher Hale and Republican strategist Charmaine Yoest. Welcome to both of you.
Hi, Patty Ann.
Thank you for having us.
Christopher, Kellyanne Conway said on Fox and Friends that there was this small and potent force who kept their votes silent until it really counted. Do you think that was the case?
Look, I think it's clear that there were Americans across the country who felt they were not being heard by either Democrats or Republicans, and they found someone that they thought could speak for them in Donald Trump. I'm not necessarily sure he's the man to really put their hopes and expectations in, but was there a hidden Trump vote? You betcha. You could see it last night. I have to say also, though, Donald Trump he's not a politician, he said, but he did old school politics. He got a group of middle-class voters, told them about days they longed for in the past, and told them who to blame for it. Quite honestly, I think it was the politics of the vision. It's a way to get to 50% plus one. He actually lost the popular vote, but he clearly won the Electoral College. It might be a way to win elections, but I hope the President-elect of the United States governs in a completely different way.
These people, why did they keep their vote silent? Kellyanne Conway said they were not embarrassed. They were just tired of arguing about their political preference. Charmaine, did they also keep their preference from pollsters? How did this work?
Well, I think there's a lot of different factors going on here, Patty Ann, and one of the things that I would point out about Christopher's take on this is that actually Donald Trump mobilized more Hispanic voters, more African Americans than we've actually seen from the GOP side in the past. He also mobilized more of the white women, college-educated women, than we were predicting ahead of time. So I think one of the most fundamental factors that you're going to have to look at as the after effect of this election is we talked ahead of time about the fact that we were seeing pollsters use polls. They were weaponizing polls by constructing polls in order to shape public opinion instead of to reflect public opinion, and that was the fundamental error. We were oversampling Democrats. We were having very small polling sizes. You know, all of these different errors added up in the end because there was this fundamental belief that somehow Trump couldn't actually be gaining traction. But there were signs out there, and people just didn't want to look at them. You know, speaking of Kellyanne, she also tweeted out last night saying not all pollsters missed it, and that's true. There were signs, and people just didn't want to believe it.
That is true. What Charmaine says, Christopher, there were a few polls that did show that Trump was going to win. Those polls were dismissed as outliers. Kind of interesting there. But let's go on to Pennsylvania right now. That was a big win for Trump. He never led in Pennsylvania in those polls. What happened, Christopher?
Look, I think the reality is these polls were off, and I think we've been talking about this entire year, establishment versus anti-establishment. I think we should further that out a little bit more. I think last night was rural versus suburban and urban America. We grossly underestimated the number of white Americans in rural communities that would come out to vote, and that was clearly underestimated in the poll samples. I don't doubt the intentions or the good work of the pollsters. I think they just got it wrong. I think they flat out missed it. I was in the Clinton headquarters last night. The internal polling that the Clinton campaign had them up a little bit in Pennsylvania, 2 to 3 points, and you know they were trying to get the right number as well, so everyone just missed it.
Yeah. Charmaine, the undercard, the congressional races, et cetera, were also impacted by this. What about that?
Well, you know, it was just a good night all the way across the board, and I think that's one of the more important factors that we have to look at in terms of interpreting the results last night. You had the Republicans holding on to the House, holding on to the Senate, and now taking the presidency. So, you know, in terms of looking at this as a movement, that's the evidence you want to be seeing. There's a temptation, I think, for the interpreters of this election to see this as being all about Donald Trump. What this is it was about a movement that he tapped into. It was a complete repudiation of the direction that we've been headed in, and buying into this idea that we need change, we need to see a different direction that we move in. And that's that's really an essential message that we can't miss as we move forward.
All right, Christopher and Charmaine, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you, Patty Ann.
And for political news and more, stay right here on FoxNews.com. I'm Patty Ann Brown. Thanks for watching.